History remembers the facts, but what about the phantoms that refuse to be forgotten? Tonight's guest has been chasing those phantoms since 2008, investigating everything from a Civil War battlefield to a New Jersey insane asylum to the sacred halls of a century-old Masonic lodge. And he's still out there digging. The founder of Jersey Unique Minds Paranormal Society, Jumps, Doug Hogate Jr. is here, and trust me, he's got stories, history books couldn't hold. Welcome, Doug.
Thank you so much here. I appreciate you for having me. Great honor. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. I'm excited to kind of dig in. Of course, one of the things I love is hearing the stories. I know you've done lots of investigations. Now, with kind of how did you get into the paranormal? Can you kind of take me back when you first started becoming fascinated or started getting interested?
Yeah, sure. Ever since I was little, I've always had this odd obsession with ghost stories. Even beyond that, I've always loved stories of alien UFOs and things like that. But my main focus has always been ghost stories. I'm talking as far back as being real little. In fact, I have a picture from my fifth birthday cake because I was obsessed with Ghostbusters at the time. And it actually said to a real Ghostbuster, "Happy fifth birthday." And it was Dougie because when I'm younger, so who would have known that
Yeah.
in a sense, here we are many years later that that's what's being referred to. But as I got older, it really started to become more modern. You always heard ghost stories, but that's exactly what they were. They were just stories, campfire stories, things like that. But then when things started to come on television and in our media, for example, Ghost Hunters, that was one of the very first ones with Jason
Yeah.
Hawes and Grant Wilson. They really kind of set the tone. So watching it, it's, oh my gosh, people really go out and professionally do this. I remember looking it up at the time. There were only two teams throughout the area here in New Jersey. So I put in a thing to actually go to a meeting and try to see about becoming a member. And I did, and there were a lot of people. And again, I'm a social butterfly. You ask anybody, I'll talk your ear off. So I'm forewarning you and the guests here right now for your episode. But I got along great. Everybody was very nice, but it was just when you get around people, you just don't feel like you have that connection. So kind of thought to myself, I wonder if I could pursue this myself. So I did. I went online. I started to buy some very cheap wireless cameras, a digital camera, and a voice recorder. And I just started doing what a lot of people do when they get into this, and that's going to cemeteries and kind of doing your cemetery hop, walking around at midnight through these old places. And I started to get mainly EVPs, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I captured that. These are things on television and I'm getting these things. It started with a gathering of a couple of friends and coworkers. I had an opportunity finally with talking about it. I was a volunteer fireman at a young age and talked him down to firehouse talk. And one of the firehouses in Salem, New Jersey, he said, there's a lot of activity. It's been said to be haunted. You should come check it out. So myself and a couple of people I knew, I went in. I had all this cheap equipment, never done an investigation ever, but I was like, hey, let me give it a try.
Yeah.
It was incredible. On the flip side of that, we got some great evidence. It was a fun night, very nerve wracking, of course, when you're first actually doing it. But after doing that, our firehouse sat right behind our local newspaper at the time. And for all your young viewers, a newspaper is the paper where we got our news. But no, they actually wanted to do a story on it. And of course, they did. It went public and it kind of went from there. I never grew up really having experiences that a lot of people, when they get into this, they say they want to pursue it. I've just always had this fascination with it and thought maybe I'd be into it for a few months and get tired of it. But here I am again, 18 years later, and I'm still rocking. So it's been a great journey for sure.
Yeah, there's always new things to try and new places to go, and that kind of keeps it exciting.
Oh yeah.
I was the opposite. Of course, I lived in a haunted house for 2 years, so that's where. But my fascination came with the paranormal. Before that, I was interested in it, but I
Mhm.
didn't really do much with it. But yeah, that was my big thing. So with Jumps, you founded in 2008. What was the original vision, and how close has that came to what you imagined when you first started?
So when you first start, you don't realize the things that it is. I'll tell you what, for being a business of ghost research, it's a roller coaster ride for sure, especially when you first start out. Again, the original vision was to just try to get into these places that were reported to be haunted and just try to capture evidence doing it. But then again, I mentioned how that newspaper article came out, and I started to be I was start people contacted me who
Yeah.
really wanted help. Now, again, I don't know what I'm really doing here, but let's see what we can find out. And I remember second investigation was for a guy who had lost, he was an older gentleman, but he had lost his elderly mother only a year prior to it. He wanted to see if she was still in the house. And I'm like, okay, this is some serious stuff here. And that kind of turned it into being the ultimate vision is let's help people determining what that activity is. Can we either find evidence of it, help them get an understanding as to what they're experiencing? But on the flip side of that, maybe they're not experiencing what they believe and they just need somebody from the outside coming in to try to find alternative explanations for it. And that's what over the years it has done. And then of course, as time went on, it was I love history. History is the main reason why I do it. I'm very
Yeah.
passionate about it, from local history to national to worldwide, everything history you could think of. And so you can't have any of this without history. So that's when I started to get involved with historical societies, organizations, and really using the paranormal to draw in people to learn the history. And that's just where it's progressed from there. And yeah, that's ultimately what it's all about is sharing the stories and keeping the stories alive of the people that not only are we attempting to communicate with, but who has structured what we are today as a society. And while society have its ups and downs, still we came from somewhere. And if we
Yeah.
can keep the legacy alive, whether someone has a small story or a big story, someone has a story. And that's what I am passionate about is keeping that story going as long as we possibly can.
Well, that's great. Now, for people that don't know, Salem County, New Jersey is your home base. And is there some historically significant locations within the county?
So yeah, Salem County itself, while no major battles took place, this is a big Revolutionary War era town. There were things when you think of names in the Revolutionary War times, like Mad Anthony Wayne, he passed through here. He was one of the most wanted people from the British during that time. There were little small battles, yes. We had things like Battle of Clinton's Bridge, which led to the Hancock Massacre, which is a big story if you research Revolutionary War times in the area. But we were a main highway that kind of led from one of the deepest ports coming up the Delaware River to land into Philadelphia. A lot of times, people that traveled here, as well as soldiers, they would stop at our port here in Salem, and then they would either take a steamboat up the river or they would get a ticket and travel up King's Highway, which is a straight highway that led from here to Philadelphia. And so, again, Salem County, with all the little history in between of different things, it's a big Revolutionary War time. One of the other significant things we have here is right off of the river, we have what's called Fort Delaware, which is Peapatch Island. It's a big Civil War prison that's been investigated and featured. I think it's actually one of the top haunted locations in the country. But
Oh,
we have a cemetery where it was Confederate soldiers. They died there. They were just thrown in the ground in this cemetery. Fortunately, now they do have a memorial up, and it's a great place I like to locate. But when you look more of modern history, serial killer Andrew Cunanan, back in 1998, when he went on a spree prior to murdering Versace, he stopped at Finn's Point and murdered the caretaker there, stole his truck, took it down to
no.
Miami, and then about a week or two later, he murdered Versace. So yeah, there's some pretty interesting historical things from the 1700s, even leading up to the night, like as my kids call it. Oh, you were born in the 1900s. So yeah, the 1900s. But yeah, definitely a really big American Revolutionary era town and county.
Last summer I was in Princeton, actually. I went to the Princeton Cemetery. That's a
Oh,
nice cemetery.
it is.
For my
Yes.
other channel, I actually went and recorded. I went to the graves of some of the famous people there and didn't do any investigating in the cemetery, but I was more there for trying to do the I have a kind of a on location history channel that I lesser known things. So I covered a few different people there, hoping this summer to do a little bit more in my area because we're a big War of 1812. I'm in
Mhm.
Plattsburgh, New York. There's the Battle of Plattsburgh,
Yep.
and there's some revolutionary stuff too. So I'm hoping to get
And
out and do a little bit of that.
and I think that's what fascinates me the most is the fact that, yeah, you have all these big history stories, but then when you look at the little things in between. I host a lot of tours around Salem County here and locally, and there are people who are older than I am that have lived here their entire life, and I'll take them to some of these spots, and at the end, they'll go, "I never knew this was here. I never knew that was a thing."
Yeah,
And I love that. I love how it's all little puzzle pieces that ultimately build up to a bigger picture. And it's just
yeah,
it's almost it's an obsession, to be honest with you, but it's a good obsession. I
yeah.
love always learning something.
Oh yes. Now, within your 15 years of investigating, is there one location that generally changed how you approached what you do and where you found forced you to rethink something?
Yeah, going back to Salem County, I do have to say, we had the opportunity, and this was back in 2012, investigate a location here called the Salem County Insane Asylum. Salem County Insane Asylum was part of a much larger, basically, it was known as the Salem County Home or the almshouse. It was the poorhouse. And as we know,
Okay.
or not sure, back in those days, if you were poor, if you were a little off, if you were elderly, they didn't have the facilities they have or the care they have these days. So they would have these establishments that were owned by local county where they would just pretty much families would drop you off no matter how old you were and just pretty much leave you.
Oh,
And as time goes on, of course, the state and federal governments, they started to establish some things, but again, it was nowhere near like it should be. But nonetheless, one of the structures that's still standing to this day, it can't even enter it now because it hasn't been preserved the correct way. But we had an opportunity to go in there. They granted us access. Now, prior to that, we've done homes and we've done historical locations, but nothing like this. Doing the research, first of all, this place had no power, so I had to kind of really gather some things like generators. I even rented a bus from a local bus company so we could set up our base. And the place hadn't been entered in 9 years. They let us go there, take the boards down, and they gave us access. So, yes, you're going in, you're doing our typical investigating. But then as time went on, it made me realize how emotional doing this can get because we were getting responses from and even after the fact, going back and reviewing the evidence of EVPs, we were getting evidence of not only regular people, some things that were obviously class A evidence, but children. I have one EVP that says mommy, and the kid, it sounds no more than maybe 5 years old.
mm,
There were still medical records that were just filed away in the basement down there. And prior to doing that, doing some research, I found that there was like an unmarked cemetery nearby. So I walked around and found that there were gravestones. I think there were a total of 72 that were underground that we had to kind of dig. So we
wow.
went and we kinda dug out. Some of them said unknown. Fortunately, after doing that, they've maintained them now, and you can see them. But it really put it in a whole different perspective as to not only are we just trying to find evidence here, but we're again, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, we're trying to keep the memory alive of some of these people who just couldn't help what happened to them. One of the big things too, look at autism. We'll use autism for an example. It's a known thing. These days you have the help they have, but when you go back to those times, they didn't have that kind of diagnosis. It's just if someone was off, they would throw them in what's called an insane asylum, and the conditions weren't the best. And again, it really it made me change my focus on all right, when you approach things, maybe we need to do a little bit more research because we want to see what we're getting into. You
Yeah,
can't just go in with a recorder and say, "Hey, who's here? Knock for me."
yeah,
It's very it can be a sad thing for sure.
yeah, yeah, it can be. Now, think you also you have been to Gettysburg.
Oh yeah.
So have you? Did you have any luck on the battlefield with
Oh man.
anything
So
or
Gettysburg is one of my favorite places. As I mentioned, I love it. I love history. Civil War history is one of my absolute favorites. Battle of Gettysburg, again, bloodiest battle. It was in 3 days, and so many lives were lost there. We had the opportunity to do two locations there as well as the battlefield. In fact, every year we take a family vacation and family wants me to take them out to the battlefield at night, places like Devil's Den and Little Round Top, see what we can get. I even a couple of years ago, there's a picture I'm standing on top of one of the rocks at Devil's Den. I have family standing behind me, but then I caught this photo of this black apparition overshadowing, almost as tall as I was on a rock, just standing there as well.
oh,
Yeah, it was unbelievable. The moon was bright. There was no denying this, and I'll have to send it to you after our interview for you to check it out. It's pretty impressive. But yeah, the battlefield is unbelievable. Being out there at night when it's quiet, a lot of times people have experiences, they say most during the anniversary, which is July 1st through July 3rd, but it doesn't really matter. You go out there, they always say,
yeah, I've heard.
if you're not a believer, go out to Gettysburg and it might change your mind. But yeah, we even got to do an orphanage and Jenny Wade House there, a couple different places, and yeah, some great activity, great evidence that we got for out of Gettysburg, and continue to do it because every year I'm there.
Wow, that's nice. I've never been, it's on my bucket list.
Oh yeah,
I will make it there someday. The closest I've gotten is Philadelphia. That's the closest.
gotcha. Yeah, I'll tell you, Gettysburg has such an energy to it that once you're driving into town, it charges. It's like it again, you talk about obsession, you don't wanna leave, and then when you do have to leave, you're ready to go right back. So, it's
Yeah.
yeah. I promise you when you go there for the first time, you know what I mean.
Yeah, and a couple months ago, I interviewed the marketing director for the Farnsworth Inn. That was a good episode. If you ever get a chance to go there to investigate, they've had, he told me some stories.
Yeah. Farnsworth House is a big one. Again, I think listed as one of the top most haunted places in the
Yeah,
country.
there's if I remember correctly, I guess there's a haunted mirror, I think in the
Yes,
basement.
I've heard that. Yep.
And Elizabeth Warren had blocked off one part of the room because there was a entity in there. I guess that's not very nice. So there's a couple, and I think there's some sharpshooters up in the attic as well that they
I
talked
have,
about.
yeah, that's another one I've heard about Farnsworth, yeah. Yeah, makes you
So
wanna go up there and say, "Alright, let's see what you got." Although I'm saying that provoking's not always the best for anyone that's like
no, no,
No,
provoking is not always good.
no, not
Uh,
at all.
one of actually, I did want to ask you. The other place I went when Princeton was the Princeton battlefield. I've heard that that's haunted. Have you had a chance to go there at all?
I have never been there to investigate, but I have actually oh god, it's been a long time ago, been through there. But I've heard the same thing. Yeah, Princeton, yeah, that it's very haunted as well. I've not had the opportunity to do that, but yeah, I have been through it and yeah, I've heard this.
Yeah, you can feel the energy. I didn't actually get to go right on the battlefield, but the road up there with all the different signs and the cabin and all that. It was very late in the day when I finally got there. So I was on a work trip. So it was me trying to hit all the spots I wanted to go. Quickly.
Stupid work
Uh,
getting in the way, right?
but it didn't cost me anything.
You can't beat that either.
Very similar to at the end of June, I'm going to be heading to New Orleans for 2 days for a work conference. I'm going to take advantage of that in the evening.
Yeah, no, that's a place I've never been is New Orleans, and yeah, I want to get there. I've never been to New Orleans, but talk about it. You got all kinds of different energies that can happen in New Orleans there.
Yeah. Oh, it should be fun.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm excited. You also went to Cape Island Masonic Temple in Cape
Oh
May.
yeah. Yeah.
There's different layers of ritual and secrecy and history baked in the walls there. What happened to you there and what still lingers in there?
So the Cape Island Masonic Temple, I'll tell you what, talk about an incredible group there, an organization. I couldn't even tell you anything bad about any of them. They allowed us, which is a shock because when you go back to the history of the Masons, it's a very secretive organization that dates back. long, long time ago, hundreds of years, if not thousands. And so they actually joined us, or I'm sorry, they one of the members there participated in kind of like an educational event that we had and approached afterwards and asked if we could come and possibly investigate. So after they got the approval, we went there and they gave us access that not many people have had the opportunity to get, at least not being a Mason. Some of the places they asked us not to film at, but one of the unique things about it is it was three women there. And the Masons, they do have a woman's charter, but they're a strict men organization. And they actually, my fiance actually was there and they allowed her in the temple to use the gavel on a very old stone to see what kind of reaction we would get. We actually had another team member named Jocelyn. She's great at the Estes method. She was saying things that the two members that were there kind of looked at each other as she would say things and go, how does she even know that? Especially one thing, not being a Mason, but to be a woman also. But we did. We got some. The big thing we got was a lot of personal experiences. I love the SLS camera, which is the camera that shows the green stick figure.
Yeah.
Saw a figure clearly stand up and hug the one member. Joe is his name. Came up, clearly saw a arm go around him, and he said the way that it looked, it was like a specific way that they hug. It was one of those investigations where, yeah, you could do your history, but it was so top secret, you could only limit how prepared you were. But
Yeah.
after we were done and the stuff we got, they said, look, we can't take it too much, but you hit on some pretty incredible, impressive things. It was a true honor, and we were able to go and actually present during one of their meetings. And everyone's had great positive feedback. We have an open invite to go back anytime, which is always a great feeling. We were invited to their member cookout in July, so we're taking advantage of that, sure. But no, they're amazing. It was a great experience, and I was so happy to have that opportunity.
Oh, I can imagine. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Now, from what I think I read was also you investigated a salon in Salem County where the
Mhm.
paranormal responses increased with electrical equipment.
Mm.
So I know you have something, I think you call it something, and is it electrogeist?
Electrogeist.
Yes. Can you
So
explain that? And
yeah, absolutely. I believe a couple of weeks ago you had I call him my partner in crime, Robert Earl White on.
yep,
And so he films our investigations as well as we do his paranormal unearth. And we get there and it's crazy. We heard experiences of there being a little girl, that three young children identified her at 5 years old, all within a year from one another. We heard a story of a man who's in the basement who is reported to get angry when people go down in the basement. So he starts throwing things. And so we get there, we start investigating, and it was like we weren't really getting what we were expecting. In fact, there was one point the SLS showed that I was getting attacked by something that wasn't physically there. And after that experience, because it was early on, I felt slightly off. It was just like this heavy feeling. And I always say things don't happen to me on investigations. I don't really get the feels or nothing like that. I remember in between doing a sweep after that experience happened, we were talking, and Robert, he came out of nowhere and he said, this place is like an Electrogeist. And we kind of look at him and it's kind of mixing where it's a salon. They have a lot of things running during the day at all times. So when that's all running, the energy, which is what spirits use, is at a max. It's almost like a super highway battery for activity. So it could potentially cause a lot of poltergeist activity, but it's all caused from the electricity. And when he put those two together, Electrogeist, it was like, could not have said it better. And that's kind of what we named it because it appeared that the activity we were expecting didn't start to happen until we turned everything on. And when everything was off, we were getting activity, but it didn't match what they were experiencing while the business was open. So it was unique because nobody's there at nighttime when everything's off. So
Yeah.
they don't really know what's going on. But when everyone's there and all them hair dryers and everything's going, it puts on a whole different, it kind of puts you on a whole different level there. So yeah, Electrogeist, that is the perfect word for it. And I got to give Robert the credit for that one because I tell you, you should trademark that name for sure.
He should. Yeah, he really should.
Yeah.
I would have asked him if I would have came upon it, but before his interview. But I only think when I was researching for you, I came upon it, and
Yeah. Yeah. It was, I'll tell you, it just came out of his mouth. I'm like, that is perfect. But it does, it really sums it up. It's just like the activity is more centralized when all that electricity is on. When we investigate and when you see others investigate, you see they turn out the lights. And it's not because we're trying to make it scary or anything like that. It's because we're trying to bring everything down to a calmness. We have our equipment, we're trying to keep everything as natural as possible. But in this case, you need everything on.
that's very
So
useful.
it's just kind of look, go and investigate, turn it all on, don't shut it off because that's where you're going to get the most activity. So it's great place again. We actually want to do a follow up there and test a couple of things. Be on the lookout for that because we are going to be
Oh,
returning.
that'll be exciting.
Mm.
Now, also, I believe you guys got a chance to investigate the Stanford Media Center, NBC Universal, if I'm correct.
Yeah, many years. So I'm going to say this was in 2014. It was weird. I remember getting an email and it said NBC Universal. And they asked that if I would be interested in having two team members of mine hop on a train that they'll cover, come up to the Stanford Media Center in Stamford, Connecticut to investigate and then appear on one of their shows. So I wasn't going to turn that down. Heck yeah, right?
No.
The Stanford Media Center is where at the time they filmed Jerry Springer, Steve Wilkos, Maury, and at the time it was another show called The Trisha Goddard Show, and all
Okay.
owned by NBC Universal. Stanford Media Center was an old theater. So we get up there and they had a lot of stories. So, of course, they did the whole film production, had the chance to investigate. In fact, I love this at the time because they always switched out sets. Jerry Springer would film for 2 nights, Maury, Steve Wilkos, they had a whole rotation. So the night we were filming and investigating, the Jerry Springer stage was set up. And I'm like, is that am I allowed up there? And they were kind of like, no one said anything. So I stood up on the Jerry Springer stage and did a quick little EVP session. I don't think many investigators could say they did that in the middle of the night.
No.
So that was cool. But then after that, the other two team members of mine, they returned. I was up there for an extra 2 days, reviewed the evidence, and then I appeared on that Trisha Goddard show to reveal my findings, which got a couple of EVPs is all, but few personal experiences. But it was cool to be contacted and seen by someone like NBC Universal and have that opportunity. That opened a few doors also. And I
That's
mean,
great.
it was fantastic. It was great. Everybody was nice. And they said I made a good impression. But again, it opened doors. So I guess I did something right. Yeah.
Now, have you been on any other paranormal shows or
Yeah.
network shows?
So I've made appearances on the Travel Channel, some small one, just a quick little feature. But the big one that I appeared on Travel Channel was, I think it was like 2 or 3 seasons, but it was called Ghost Nation.
Okay,
And
I've heard of it. Yeah.
yeah, Ghost Nation was after Ghost Hunters was, I don't know what the story was with it, but Jason Hawes, Steve Gonsalves, and Dave Tango started a new show called Ghost Nation. And I was contacted by production company or the production of that show and asked if I'd be interested in joining them on a place in New Jersey here. So again, not going to turn that down.
No.
So did I went up and I spent a week filming with them. We did a house in a town called Mantua in South Jersey. It was such a cool experience. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. Sit there and you see these shows, and sometimes you're skeptical. If they go and ask me to try to fake something, I don't know how I'm going to feel about that. So it was kind of like going in there. I can't, yeah, great opportunity, but I had my suspicions. But I'll tell you something right now, the way that it worked was during the day for all the little B reel, we had to walk up and down the same path by about 50 times. It was the production crew that directed us. But when it came down to investigating, it was us. I had a chance to investigate with Jason, Steve, and Dave. No, I will tell you this on everything. Not once was I given any direction on over exaggerating anything or doing anything. It was a great experience. In fact, it gave a perspective of what high EMF can do because the activity they were having, they found that high EMF was coming from their youngest son's bedroom due to a bad switch. And
Oh,
so the electrician came in and replaced it. I've stayed in contact with those homeowners, and after that happened, the activity died down and everything was fixed. So very,
wow.
very cool. And I love that. That's kind of how we like to present things when we do our videos is to show it's not all about being scared or trying to put in the
Yeah,
evil. There's a process. This is what it's all about. And I love that. It was a great opportunity.
yeah. And I've always heard good things about the ghost hunters of Jason and them.
Yeah.
They're pretty straightforward.
And it's neat because they remember you. You work with them once. Steve Gonsalves, over one time he had his book released. So I went on a live that he was doing. As he was doing autographs, he was asking questions. So I put up a little comment because I remember it was about a week after we filmed. There was a down in Penhurst in Penn or in PA. There was a what was it, like a convention, and they were there. So I hear somebody yell in the background, "Is that Doug Hogate?" And I turn around, it was Steve Gonsalves. So
Mm,
it was cool. So anyway, so I saw him about a year or two later online. I went on, I commented, "Great job, Steve. Good luck." And he saw it and said, "Good to see," and actually talked about me joining them. And so again, they're genuine. They really are. They're great. A
yeah,
great group of guys. So it's
yeah.
all
I haven't met them yet, but hopefully someday.
yeah, yeah. No, I you won't regret it. They're so nice. Yeah, they're awesome.
So moving on to you've been doing this since 2008. The field's changed dramatically with the technology, the audience, TV shows we just talked about, and the different social media landscapes. What's better now than it was, and what's worse?
Oh goodness, you're gonna pull me on that. Oh, yeah. How much time do we have? No. No. So going back when I first started, at least in this area, as I mentioned, there were only two teams here in New Jersey. There was one team in Delaware, well known, and that was it. So here I am, this young guy, really starting this other team, and it's you get your looks and your things like, ah, come on, we're already established, which is sad because we don't have a Fortune 500 company here. Let's work together, kind of thing. But anyway, so it was tough at first because you got a lot of criticism because while it was on TV, when you started to put it out there to people that you're doing ghost hunting, you had the jokes, you were made fun of, and it was, is this really worth it? But just like anything else, you just keep going. We were getting those requests, seeing we were helping people, so it overshadowed the criticism. And I always look at this as it's much like starting, let's say, a roofing company. No one's going to hire you to do their roof if you've never done a roof before. You got to build up a little bit, and you got to get that reputation to show that you're serious about it. And that's what I continue to work at with groups of people that help me out. And so where it has changed is that you have a lot more people open to doing it. There's a lot of teams out there. So anybody that wants help, they don't have to look too hard, and it's a lot more accepted now. Now, on the flip side of that, again, what I talked about with the unity in this, look, we're out and we're doing research. We're all always learning stuff. I don't care how long I've done this. Yeah, I've done a lot of great places, had great opportunities, but I'm always finding out something new. I mean,
Yeah,
we're researching something that ultimately we're never going to have an answer for, not until our time comes. But if we can bring some closure to people as to what they're experiencing, that's the goal. And if we can work with one another to be able to do that, why would you not want to? I'm not better than this person. They're not better than me. Let's just work as a whole here. I'm not saying everyone does, but there are people out there like that. Things have changed. They don't really put it on television too much, except for one specific show. But again, I don't want to mention the name, but everything is all evil that they present, which
Yeah.
it's not like that. But again, it has definitely improved for the better. The only thing that, if anyone's listening that's thinking about wanting to get into this, I'll tell you this right now. While there is a great, amazing equipment out there, everything I personally use is basic stuff. I have found more success on finding evidence with little voice recorders or spirit bells or REM pods that might cost you $50, $60 over a machine that might cost you $2,000 that you won't get anything off of. It's all about hearing and seeing. And you don't need to spend your entire life savings in doing that. It's all about building that experience and being able to help people and present it. So, yes, it's great. It's amazing technology, but the most expensive technology I honestly have to use is I use my RR cameras and my SLS. And to be able to visually use that with our meters and getting our EVPs, that's all you need. That's what it's all about. So, yes, it's accepted now. I love that. Just again, this isn't our main line of business. And you got YouTube, it's great. We present our stuff on YouTube, but that's not my living. That's not what pays my bills. I have a career that
Yeah.
pays my bills. This is something that I do for fun. And if you're in it to do that or think you're going to get some kind of television deal, hey, if you do, congratulations, but don't let that be your focus
Yeah. Yeah.
because you'll be let down for sure.
Yeah, I think that you can go pretty much to the basics. I have a camera that I'm gonna bring, and I'm bringing my cell phone. I'm probably gonna record from that. I think I've been told it records just as well as getting a expensive a recorder.
These cell phones are unbelievable. They film some parts in movies with these phones sometimes.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable, and that's it. You're just trying to capture evidence and find answers. You can get just as much with a $50, $60 REM pod that you can with a $5,000 light show. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, you don't need all that.
Yeah. There is some debate in the paranormal investigation circles about methodology. How scientific do you try to be? And where does the personal experience factor in for you and your team?
Personal experience to me is everything. When it comes to, first and foremost, it's getting the claims of a client and trying to figure out, okay, what could be causing that? Because when things happen to people, our human mind is right away. If we can't explain it, we're going to be afraid of it. So
Yeah.
sometimes if you get somebody as simple as laying in bed and they're like, oh, at nighttime, I hear someone walking down my hallway. Then we come and investigate and have someone standing in that room, walk down the hallway, and you realize this is an old floor. Of course, it sounds like someone's standing there. Okay, on another side of the house. It's just things you look for. It's a lot of common sense things, to be honest with you. And it's science. When you want to look at the science of it, e- energy is the number one thing with this, energy and electricity. That's what has to be present in order for activity to happen and be experienced. So that's what we're ultimately looking for when we come into a location, because on the flip side of energy, electricity causing the activity, it can also, too much of us, start to mess with our brains, making us think we're having an experience that we're not. So that's why we come in and we do those basic electrical readings to try to figure out one side or the other what's working out here. But then we're using our equipment to try to make contact, sitting down, just having a conversation. Let's see who wants to come out and talk. And if we can get that visually and we can get the audio on top of having the bells ring and the REM pods go off, there you go. That's the answers that people are looking for. We actually, a couple of weeks ago, did an investigation. We filmed it. It was a place with paranormal unearthed called Wackley Farmhouse. And the guy was fifth generation owned of this old farmhouse. And we got started, and through our spirit box and through the SLS, it was like a family reunion because it was giving names of
Mm.
family members that he said, I know who that is. I know who that is. Very specific. Just last night, this episode will reveal here, will be released here in about a week or two. We had the same thing. Our client lost her son just a year ago, and we picked up voice. We live on the thing she was able to see. We even saw on the SLS a figure giving her a hug. We even got a "I miss you." And it was emotional for her. That's what it's about. So
Yeah,
it's, yeah, we say scientific, which, yeah, there is some science to it. But ultimately, we're just bringing in cool gadgets and knowing how to talk to them and what to say to bring them out, giving them
yeah,
an opportunity to talk and bringing either some closure or to someone, whether it's on the spiritual level or naturally, that this is what's happening. So it, again, it's all common sense and it's all just basic stuff. It's all just going in, seeing what you can capture and communicate, and then come up with a conclusion. And sometimes it takes more than one time going to a place also. You got to
yeah.
follow up. So that's my whole thing on it when it comes to the science of it. But that's all it is in a nutshell.
Okay. Now, I think I read that you do haunted bus tours or any some tours
Mm.
in Salem County. Can you tell me a little bit about those?
Oh, yeah, sure. Again, the local history is, as I've said it a couple of times, very passionate about. And I remember, gosh, about 10 years ago, started this idea of having a bus tour where you got walking tours and all that, but no one's ever loaded up on a bus to actually go spot to spot around here. So came up with that and a couple locations, Finn's Point being one of them I talked about, the cemetery. And that very first one, it sold out. People loved it. And it's did it for a couple of years, actually won best event here in Salem County for it. But I didn't want it to get to people to get too tired of it because it started getting to the point where it was repetitive and it started to die down. So it's like, all right, let's take a little bit of a break here. So give it a couple of years, brought it back, and it was like it sells out every time. Usually I do them in October. I just did a
Yeah.
spring one actually a
Oh.
week ago. Oh my gosh, it sold out in a week. And it's great. We go around to different locations. I like to tell a story where it starts out in how Salem County originally formed in the 1600s as farmland. And then it's like taking a step up into time to the Revolutionary War times, up to the Civil War times, and realizing, making people realize how it all connects. It's like a history lesson with some activity that mixes into it. And it's been a great success, and I'm very happy with it. I love it, and people can't get enough.
That's great. Yeah, I thought that was unique. I know that some of the bigger cities do the bus tours, but I know
Mhm.
it's probably not something that's done as much in your areas as much. But
Now they have a lot of walking tours and things like that, but
yeah,
it's different in 3, I'll tell you what, 3 hours still isn't enough. We just had this spring one. We had a lot of activity happen in 2 cemeteries. I had to cut it down because it's only 3 hours. And but people are there to experience that activity, so hey, we
yeah,
we kept on with it. The feedback is always amazing. I've never heard anything bad about it. I'm so happy about that. I love being able to bring people that experience of having a good time, learning about the paranormal, and hey, maybe even learning some history. So I'll
yeah.
trick you into learning something for sure.
Now, over your 15 years, what do you look for in someone you to bring into an investigation, and what would disqualify someone immediately?
So one of the first rules I have when having someone come in is making them realize, look, again, things on TV, it's not always like that. We could go hours of nothing, but just being prepared for that. But on the flip side of that, you could have something where it's quiet and then you hear a loud bang. Now, I'm not saying you can't be startled. Our human reaction is to be startled about that, but you got to maintain professionalism. People are already uh, kind of worried about bringing you in sometimes because the first thing I always hear is, "Oh, you're going to think I'm crazy." You got to keep that level headedness to you. The biggest thing that I look at is people who are passionate about it. I have younger generation on my team coming in wanting to learn about it. And if you have a passion for learning about it and realizing that this is a true, serious thing, not pretending that we're Yeah, being filmed for some show on the Travel Channel. So let's run out and scream and say there's demons all over my head. That's not what it's about. We're providing a service for people, and you have to realize that as long as they're open to it, I'm always willing to give people an opportunity, a chance, but you got to be in it for the right reasons.
And just for the record, for people out there, I've interviewed many demonologists. It's very rare to have a demon.
It's unfortunate because I get it. I'm not on here to talk negative or
No.
anything like that, but right away, it's the first thing that wants to be presented because that's the scare factor. That brings the suspense. But no, just present what's happening, present
Yeah.
the process, and people will be intrigued. It's not as common as you think. That's why I hate the title of that movie, Paranormal Activity, because what they present's not always paranormal activity. So, yeah, you're right. It's not as common as it seems to be out there, especially out in the big world of television.
Yes. Now, in your years of investigating, have you found anything that generally you couldn't explain that was probably not paranormal, but something where every rational exit was closed?
Oh, let's see. Again, a lot of another. So we'll go back again to the very beginning when I'm still kind of learning everything. It was a cool thing to experience. I remember there was this older lady that called us in to do her house, and it was she kind of got her granddaughter to reach out to us to come in because her husband had passed, all her kids were older, and she lived in this house by herself. And she was having things that were weird, but she was kind of weirded out by talking about it. It was more along the granddaughter that was to talk about when she would stay over and things like that. But then she started to kind of open up a little bit. And you kind of got this feeling that when she's there at night, yeah, she felt uneasy. With the older generation, you can talk about ghosts. Come on now, get out of here, right? So everything they presented, again, it was like footsteps, taps, and things like that. They lived in an older house. So we actually were able to go in and every claim they had, find it all a natural explanation for it. We were able to actually figure out what was going on and said, look, if you have activity here, you might not be experiencing it, it might be natural, right?
Yeah.
Not far from that location, we were called by a friend of this same older lady. They had just built a house and the house was only maybe 6 months old, and they were having activity. They couldn't figure it out. That weird things were happening, all these things. You try to do research on the ground, but particularly where the ground was, there wasn't anything specific on it. So it's like, all right, why are you having this activity? We went in, and I'll tell you, it was active. We were knocks on demand. We got a lot of EVPs, and it just completely my mind was blown. Could not figure out why. I spent a couple of months trying to figure it out. I work in emergency services, and I don't know what it was, but one day it dawned on me about the area, the road that's traveled there. How many accidents have happened there? And when I actually looked up some things, I realized that area that was on a bend kinda, there were so many fatal accidents that took place not even a quarter mile from where their house was because it was a field. But so we were able to figure it out, but it took months. I couldn't for the life of me figure out what could have triggered this much activity in a brand new home.
Yeah.
And it just goes with the theory again with the ground. Now, again, this was many years ago. I followed up for a little bit. They were very happy with coming in. I think they accepted it. I did reach out when I found out about that. They're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But that was one it was tough to crack.
Yeah, I can
Right.
imagine.
Yeah, and then I don't know what it was that dawned on me, because look at and I'm just could I completely say that, yes, maybe the spirits they were having, the activity happen was from maybe some fatal accidents that took place there? I can't say rather yes or no, but that's
Yeah.
the only logical thing that I could come up with that specific area.
Yeah.
That one's still a brain teaser to this day for sure.
Yes. So I just have a couple more questions
Yeah,
for you.
sure.
What's the investigation that you have not done, but you need to do before you're done?
Oh man,
What's on the bucket list?
so there's two. Waverly Hills. Never been to Waverly Hills. I've got to get to Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Like that place, it's so active. Another, probably the most haunted location you can think of. I'm sorry, I have three here. The Stanley Hotel. Come on now. Who would want to do the Stanley Hotel with
Yeah,
the activity there? I have a tie for three. Alcatraz. Would love to get out to San Francisco and do Alcatraz, but the other one is local right here. Remember I talked about Fort Delaware at Peapatch Island?
yeah.
I could literally drive there in 5 minutes. It's off in the middle of the river. I have been everywhere and investigated, but the problem out there is they want thousands of dollars to drop you off in the middle of the night to investigate. So they'll allow it, but they want a couple of thousand. Now, if I hit the lottery, the first thing I'm spending my money on is to be dropped off on that island.
Huh?
But I'll at least get to that one. So those
Yeah.
so you asked for one, those are my top three with two tied for third place for sure.
So, and kind of the last thing that where can people find you? Where they find jumps? They want to reach out.
I have a website. It's www.jumpsteam.com. It's where you can find all kinds of updates on us. I also, with client permission, of course, I will present not only our videos, but the evidence that we find to give people an opportunity to hear and see the things that we capture because sometimes we might hear something different. I like presenting it to people. So you can go in there and check things out, even do a read up on what happened at those investigations. Of course, we're on Facebook, which is Jumps Team, Jersey Unique Minds Paranormal Society. We are always posting on there, as well as TikTok, again, at Jumps Team, posting different videos on that. The Instagram thing, I just recently started to get onto. It's kind of tied with the Facebook there, but I'm still kind of learning. There's too many social medias to keep up with, I'll tell you. But yeah, Facebook, TikTok, and then our website. Those are the main things right there. And it's also got information on how to reach out to us if you ever need our help.
Okay. Sounds good. I thank you for coming on tonight. We've had lots of stories that you went through, which I really appreciate. I love to hear them.
Thank you very much.
And if you want to follow Doug and the Jumps team, check out their official website at jumpsteam.com and find them on YouTube, Facebook, or
Mhm.
TikTok as well. And if you have, and everyone watching, if this is your first time here, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. I drop new episodes every Wednesday and Saturday. And trust me, you don't want to miss the ones I have coming up. If you've got a haunted location, a paranormal story, or someone you think should be on the show, drop a comment and I'll reach out. And remember, history never truly dies, it just finds new ways to haunt us. Until next time, keep digging into the darkness.